Morning, Paul. Paul, good morning. Your volume, your audio sounds. Give us a,
That better?
Yep.
I was having trouble, all kinds of trouble
Hello?
getting in.
Oh,
Okay. Paul, we had some adjustments to the agenda this morning.
Yeah, it looks like the airport.
All that, we've got a UT issue. So anyways, I'll make those motions before we approve the agenda.
Okay,
Gentlemen, it's 8:30. I'm going to call this regular meeting of July 6, 2021 Hancock County Commissioners meeting to order. Under adjustments, the agenda this morning, we need to adjust the airport item B as in Boston. We need to accept the employment of this individual, and we need to accept the resignation of the individual, and then we need to advertise for a replacement. So I move we make those adjustments to item 3B.
second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
and I am myself, motion carries. I direct your attention to item under the UT 6D as in David. We need to remove that. We have yet to receive that contract back yet from Burlington. So I move that we remove item 6D from the proposed agenda.
second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
I am myself, motion carries. Any other adjustments to the agenda?
so I'm gonna move to
Hearing
approve the
none.
amended agenda as amended.
Seconded.
Motion made and second to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
and I am myself, motion carries. We have our agenda is now in order. I would like to remind everybody that this morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to have a presentation by Kitty Barbie on our ARP funds. Good morning, Kitty.
Good morning.
morning.
Let's draw your attention to the agenda, and I'd first go to public comment. Is there anybody out there this morning that would like to make a public comment? Unless I missed something, hearing none, we'll move on then to approval of the prior meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the June 15th special meeting as presented.
Seconded. Seconded.
Motion made. John?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you second that, John?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Yep.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of June 15th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
yes,
and I am myself. Motion carries. Do I detect a slight technical problem here this morning? Seems like you people might be a couple seconds behind me.
I'm not.
I don't know.
So,
We'll-
It seems normal on this end.
here too. Although I gotta tell you, I had trouble getting in and had to try 2 or 3 times, so.
Well, it's the, when asking for approval for the motions, it seems like your response is 2 or 3 seconds behind. if you're considering whether or not you want to respond, I understand if it's a technical difficulty. I'm just trying to figure
Oh.
out which it was, so.
No, John's been right on it real
Okay.
quick, so.
No, and John's a couple seconds behind me. Okay, I'll consider that technicality and not lack of cooperation. Thank you. Let's move on then to the airport. Gentlemen, do you have his monthly report in front of you?
Unless there's something to add, I'm gonna move to accept and file the airport manager's report as presented as memo dated 6/25.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I am a little disheartened, Leroy, about that nasty email from Hancock, but I don't know what they're gonna do about if the flight path is over your house in Hancock. But anyways,
Me neither.
comes with the
Yep.
job, I guess.
Yep.
Gentlemen, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Gentlemen, item B is a unique situation. It's unique in that I don't remember it happening quite like this, but occasionally we're asked to give tentative approval or hire and then make that official at our next meeting. We did that with regards to Frank Everson in assisting Leroy in getting him employed. That was effective June 26. But on the 1st of July, Mr. Everson submitted his resignation prior to us before we were able to get to official employment. But the situation is that he was employed through a tentative approval. And so I think procedurally, this morning, we need to approve his employment effective June 26th, and then approve his resignation effective July 1st, and then give Leroy the opportunity to advertise for his replacement. So a
Okay.
motion is, go ahead.
You want one big, long motion, or you want three individual ones?
I don't think it makes any difference, Paul, however you want
Okay,
to
I'll
do
keep
it.
them nice and short. Just, I'm gonna move to hire Kenneth Everson of Amherst as full-time airport maintenance, grades 7, step C, effective June 26, 2021.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries.
Okay, I'm gonna move to accept the resignation of Frank Everson of Amherst. Resignation as effective 7/1/21.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries.
I'm gonna move to approve advertising for a full-time airport maintenance employee as recommended by the airport manager.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion. Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Leroy, you all set with that position?
Yeah, and we're gonna have to, we had high hopes there and apparently it didn't work out, so.
It is a shame because on paper, it appeared that he would have made an excellent employee.
Yeah, he was perfect for what we was looking for. So we'll have to reevaluate how we're moving forward.
All right, good luck. We'll move
Thanks.
to item C. Move to item C. You have a sublease between Columbia Air and Bar Harbor.
Yeah, and Cape Air, yes, Cape Air wants to rent or sublease some hangar space and offices to maintain basically maintain their fleet that they got here. They got 5 airplanes stationed here this summer, so they're bringing their own maintenance crew, and they're going to sublease the Columbia's maintenance hangar. It seems how Columbia doesn't have any maintenance right now, so Cape Air had to bring in their own.
So this really is an agreement between Columbia and Cape Air and not the airport, right?
Correct. So it's just that procedurally, we need to just bless it.
Yeah, we need to consent to it.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to move to approve and sign the consent of the sublease between Columbia Air, BHB, and Hyannis Air Service Incorporated, doing business as Cape Air, dated June 1, 2021, as presented. And that was June 1 and not July 1. It says June 1 in this agreement.
Correct. Yeah.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded to accept to consent to the sublease. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All in favor? Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries. Move on to the MOU between the airport and the town of Trenton.
I'm going to move to approve and authorize the chair to sign the MOU between Hancock County, Bar Harbor Airport, and the town of Trenton Fire Department for lead airport rescue firefighting airport coverage as presented. And thank you, everyone involved. That's good work.
Yeah, I think this will benefit all of us in the long run.
We have a
Second.
motion on the floor,
Yep, seconded.
made and seconded. Leroy, what's in this for the town of Trenton? Why would they,
Well,
What-
this one
What?
thing with this for the town of Trenton was the town of Trenton has no person in the fire station 5 days a week. So and let's face it, all of these small communities need to have somebody around due to lack of staffing, government mandates on inspections of equipment. It's really asking a lot of the volunteers. So what Trenton gets out of this is they get a 20-hour-a-week person in the fire station to do basically the same thing they'll have to do here is, maintain records and inspections on, the equipment and so on. So, and they get it, they don't have to pay a full price for it. They're with the splitting the cost right down the middle. It makes it a little easier for them as the town to accept it. And there was the town meeting. There was nobody that stood out against this agreement at all either. So I think it's a win-win. I've been talking with Chief Corson for years, telling him he needed to have somebody in the firehouse, mainly just because of there's nobody in town anymore to get a fire truck rolling in the short term. So it's a huge win for them, and it's a pretty big win for us because now it's one less employee we got to have that's going to cover our mandates.
but we're only going to have 20 hours in this employee, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct. And that's yes, and that's
That can fulfill,
that. Yeah, that'll fulfill what we need to do. Yeah. I don't think we needed a full-time person here, especially now with it not being necessary to have ARF coverage 7 days a week. We only have to have ARF coverage now upon request, and and that's like I think I put in a 48-hour request if somebody wants it. So give us plenty of time to get somebody on site. So this is just kind of fulfilling a hole that Todd's been taking care of since Thomas left, to try to keep all that paperwork in line, plus keep the terminal building clean, plus maintain the airport. So it's been a little bit of a struggle with the manpower we've had.
all right, thank you. Gentlemen, any further discussion?
Nope.
If not, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Leroy, anything else from the airport this morning?
No, just, we did get another $1 million grant, that we're waiting to get an approval on. So that'll be nice to see another big chunk of money come in.
Is that for AIP?
No, this is, what do they call it? Airport Rescue Grant. Just some more free money from the federal government. It's $1 million 49,000, almost $1 million 50,000. Sounds like it'll have the
Well,
same restrictions as the previous one, operational costs and so on. So,
I guess we shouldn't look a gift tossed in the eye, but
yeah,
where is this money?
yeah, exactly.
In here, maybe?
Yeah. So that's
Okay,
2
thank you very
million.
much.
Okay, thank
2
you.
million that you've,
2 million we've got this year.
okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Not gonna
All right,
complain.
thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on this morning. I'd like to move to the district attorney, but I don't see, there's Matt. Good morning, Matt.
Morning.
So Matt, you have some bonds for us to approve for this, security bonds?
Yes, pursuant to the statute, I'm going to make a motion that you examine and consider the sufficiency of the sheriff's bond.
Okay, so I'm going to move to approve and sign the sheriff's, sheriff's, chief deputies, and patrol deputies bonds, all dated May 5th, 2021, as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Let's move on to a discussion with regards to item B, the request to hire a legal secretary.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to give the commissioners a breakdown of what we need in our front office.
Morning. We're looking to hire, instead of another legal secretary 3, a legal secretary 1 position, because as Lily was getting ready to leave, I did a lot of shadowing with her in anticipation of filling in for her, and a lot of her duties are beyond what the other legal secretary does at this point. And so we were hoping to show that in monetary value, that she really did do a lot of other stuff. And I've reviewed the job descriptions that Rebecca sent us, and in reviewing those, I found that some of the responsibilities that are listed under the previous job description for legal secretary 1, like number 9 and number 10, Lily was actually doing. So in saying that, a lot of the job descriptions are actually outdated. So I do plan to redo those to reflect what the actual job descriptions are for these positions. But she did a lot with, Lily did a lot with the finance part too. She did the ledgers for Annalise and myself around the deferred fees and the restitution fees, and made sure that those were accurate, and we were able to document those in our programs that we keep. She did do the other things like requesting the court calendars, kept that up to date, did our website, made sure that all the attorneys lists were annotated so they knew which cases were coming up. She really had a lot of other duties that I didn't realize being new, that the other secretary position does not do.
I'd also like to add that we received some really great resumes in this round when we advertised, and there's some people with some really great qualifications that I would really hate to miss out on based on the salary range for a secretary 3. And I think we could really make use of some of the folks that applied to do additional duties within the office. Did you have anything else, Michelle?
I think that's the majority of it. Other than I neglected to mention when I was shadowing with Lily, she was doing a lot with the jury list, and in 2020, we didn't have a lot of jury trials and stuff due to COVID, but we're going to be slammed coming up soon. And that would be a lot of work going over to the court and making sure to document all the potential jurors and do all the research that needs to be done in Justware. So whoever is hired has a lot of additional work that they'll have to get up to speed on.
Well, in discussing this previously with HR, in regards to your comment about good applicants, Rebecca made a comment that I thought was very appropriate, that it's like a medical center who has an opening for a nurse and a doctor applies, so they hire the doctor to do the nurse's job, but they want to pay him doctor's wages. The problem with this is that if we hire the doctor for the DA's office, and the doctor gets done and the nurse takes it, we're not going to go back to nurse's wages. So whatever wage we set for this today is going to be forever. I mean, that in my history here with the county, they've never, well, I shouldn't say never. I mean, somehow these got changed down and back again, but anyways, will help me understand though, first of all, you have a legal secretary 2 position, but you have none and haven't had anybody in 2 since you've been there, right, Matt?
That's correct.
And so as I look at the job descriptions for all 3, who's performing the duties of legal secretary 2?
Again, the duties aren't clearly reflected in these job descriptions because they're so old. So a portion of it Lally is doing at this time. But that's a portion because there's different portions that each person's doing. It's not clearly defined by any of these job descriptions for any of them.
When I look at the 3 job descriptions, the thing that stands out to me is that the legal secretary to me seems to be like the bullpen position, where you hire the person as the number 3, and then they've learned the job. Maybe they've gotten some education on the side, some advanced training, and they get bumped up to number 2 because of their knowledge and putting the effort forth. Am I wrong that maybe that's how it was used in the past? I'm just curious.
Well, in the past, we never used it because the step was the same. It was the same pay. So there was never any point in making somebody a legal secretary 2 because it had no benefit other than an arbitrary designation. So at this point, with the steps being different, that I think that is a good or an accurate way to describe it. But it's really difficult to pin down a job description for these 3 different positions because everything overlaps. It's very difficult to say only this person does this and therefore they are secretary 3, or only this person does this and therefore they are secretary 2. We all have to pitch in and do whatever needs to get done, and a lot of people are cross-trained to do everything. Michelle, for instance.
So I guess that's also one of the things I'm thinking about. And I think it kind of goes to what Bill was saying a little bit, in that, is there going to be an issue with somebody's secretary 1 that they are going to end up having to do maybe possibly more clerical work that we would consider more of a secretary, a number 3 position in, like, I'm just kind of wondering.
Yeah, one of the other problems that we have is that even though the work itself is fairly rote in terms of the duties that have to be done, it's repetitive and fairly straightforward. But there's a lot of the employee needs the ability to use a lot of judgment that you normally wouldn't have in an entry-level position. They have to be able to read police reports and understand what's going on in certain instances so that they know that, hey, this information is confidential, or this information can't be released to this certain person. So it's really difficult to classify because it's not entry level in terms of the type of thinking that needs to go on, but it is entry level in terms of the type of work, you know, the copying and the data entry and things like that. So it's a really difficult, they're really difficult position to find someone who is appropriate for. And when I see applications where people have training as paralegal or in the criminal justice field, I just cross my fingers that I'm going to be able to interest these folks in some way to be able to do this, because for somebody who enjoys a job that has set tasks to do, but can also use their kind of reasoning abilities to be able to make determinations that wouldn't normally be an entry-level position, this is a great position. But for somebody who's looking to to go beyond that, it's really going to be frustrating because it's the same thing over and over and over again.
I have a couple questions, and it sounds like you're trying to make employees fit into, to use some language that was brought up earlier, some outdated job descriptions. So it sounds like you have a direction you're trying to go. So it seems to me that the, next task, next immediate task is to update these job descriptions to what people are actually doing and what you envision for your office. Because clearly, what's clear to me is that these job descriptions are not in tune to what you feel the office, not in tune to how you feel the office should be structured. Am I reading this wrong, or is that accurate?
That's accurate, but the problem is that every time the court makes a change to how they want things done, those jobs change. So for us to keep changing the job descriptions is a very labor-intensive task that, quite frankly, we're just trying to keep up with the work we get from the court. So, we'd be happy to update them now, but 2 weeks from now, the court could make some changes that force us to do things differently, and we'd have to change them again. So that's another frustration. But I do agree with you that the descriptions are not up to date.
Well, I don't know how to get around that because they should be accurate. And, I understand that there's some lag time there and maybe you need some help to do that. But I do feel that, you use the language arbitrary titles. Well, they should not be arbitrary titles. They should be accurate, or accurate as possible. I'm not trying to be unreasonable, but it sounds like that's a task that's sorely needed right now, and we should not be trying to fit this into an outdated model, because that's what it sounds like we're trying to do.
The problem I'm having is that the DA's office traditionally has been an office with 4 clerical positions. Clerical is not the right word, but there's support positions. And basically some of those support positions were data entry people who were doing the basic entry task. Once it was called a receptionist filing clerk, and that's now been changed to legal secretary 3 and so on. And then you have the other end of the spectrum were the paralegals who were doing a lot of the paralegal work for the assistant DAs. And now it appears that Matt wants all 4 of those positions to be the top end paralegals. And I'm having a real problem believing that office needs 4 paralegals. And I can see the complexities and the aggravation of having 3 job descriptions that don't really fit anybody. But I think Paul is absolutely right. I think somehow if we could, and my suggestion is going to be that we reduce this down to 2 positions. And one of those job descriptions describes that person who is doing the filing, who's doing the data entry, who's doing the basic task. And, as far as the court's changing, procedures every other week, well, it happens to everybody. Look at police officers. They're required to change their processes often because of court action. And I don't think that's something that only a paralegal can deal with. I think that any trained employee, regardless of that entry level skill, can be trained to accommodate those changes. But I'd like to propose that the DA's office have a legal secretary position, and then that they have a clerk position. That's the only 2 job descriptions that we should have, and they become generalized enough so that Matt can place his employees within those 2 job descriptions and meet this tradition that I have of a couple in one and a couple in the other. I'm really having a problem believing that Matt needs more than the traditional 2 paralegals. And right now his budget doesn't support more than 2 paralegals. I would entertain a grade increase if Matt was to do that, so that the paralegals would be a 9, which they are as of November of last year. They became a 9, and that the other job description, the other position, would be something close to that, but not a 9. And anyways, that would be my suggestion for how we deal with this issue.
Well, my feeling is that, I'm inclined to, approve what Matt is, or what the district attorney is asking for here. But I also think that, we, at some point, we need to see a structure so that, I'm not interested in structuring the district attorney's office. I think he's the expert there, he and his folks. So I would like to see what the district attorney and that department of county government suggest as a structure, and have us improve that. I hate shoving things down people's throat because it may not work. And the other commissioners have more experience with this than I do, only because I've only been here 6-7 months, so or 6 months. So I'd like to see what the district attorney envisions. I have an inkling, based on this request, but he should be able to, structure his department so it can run efficiently within the budget. And that's what I'd like to see, come out of this. I think probably we need to approve this request to get there. Is that a fair assessment, Matt or Michelle? Or
I think it is. One of the problems that I have is that I think that we could likely use 2 Secretary 3s in place of the one we have. But I think that a Secretary 1, somebody who has the additional training, could do that job. So in terms of what we actually need, the cost would be much higher than what I'm asking for, because I think that with a person with more experience and better training existing, that they would be able to at least keep up with what we have now, as opposed to just hiring more entry-level folks who, I could get the stuff done with a bunch of entry-level folks, but I could get the same stuff done with one more qualified person.
And that's what your request is today.
Yes.
So tell me again, Matt, how many secretary ones do you have right now?
There are two,
Okay. So you're requesting to go to a third, right?
correct.
Okay.
Well, it's more than a request for an additional one. It's moving 3 to a 1. So in other words, instead of having 2 1s and 2 3s, he wants 3 1s and a 3. So that's really the issue here. And even the job descriptions, though. Well, of course, he doesn't like his job descriptions, and I guess it shouldn't be using this, whatnot. But there are similar requirements in 3 and 1. I mean, if you look at 5 in 1 about scheduling for attorneys, and you look at 3, and you look at 8 for scheduling appointments for attorneys. I mean, even by job descriptions, they share some duties, and so that's always been, even in the old job descriptions, that's been a requirement, and the fact that it's a small office shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But
Well, and if I can add, one of the things that is probably not apparent from the job descriptions is that the attorneys that I have right now basically do all of those things for themselves. Staff doesn't prepare motions. Staff doesn't prepare any documents for court. The attorneys do all of that themselves. The staff that I have right now is just barely keeping their heads above water, processing the paperwork that we get through this office. The copying of DVDs and the number of times that staff has to touch paperwork when we get requests is just overwhelming. And Michelle, jump in here if there's anything that I'm forgetting, but in some of the other district attorney's offices, the support staff actually do those things that are in the job description. They prepare complaints, they prepare motions and things like that, but we don't, our staff here, we're so short-staffed with the people we have that our attorneys do all that work themselves, just because it's overwhelming for the support staff.
So this move that you're requesting, as I understand it, you're able to do that move and live within your budget.
I think so, because because of Amy Smith's departure, she came in at a very high pay rate, and I think we're going to have some savings there. And Bruno also left. He had been here for some time, so I think we'll have some savings there. I haven't run the numbers. I'm not saying it's going to be a wash, but I think it's not going to be as bad as it seems on its face.
Well, Rebecca and Scott, don't we have to know that?
well, I can tell you that the grade increase is 5.5% between grades, and he's going to go up 3. So I mean, that's 16.5% increase in just the base pay for this individual. So that's going to certainly increase.
I'm not trying to individualize this. What I'm trying to do is, does this fit within the current budget? Because if it doesn't, then we have another problem. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah, I did some quick calculation, and I think I alluded to that in the notes. And I would agree with Matt. I'm probably even a little more optimistic. I think he's okay, especially with half a year making this change. That yes, that his current budget will be able to absorb it. Maybe not in that particular line, but overall.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right. It'll be then, but you're also looking at, there'll be an increase in the budget for next year.
Well, that's exactly what I'm getting at is, it needs to fit within the budget this year, and then we need to see a structure before the budget next year, or we're right back where we are. We're gonna, every meeting we're gonna be hashing this out. So again, I really do see the need. It's that's uneducated on my part, but from what you folks are saying, I see the need. we just need a structure at some point.
That's another reason why I suggested that, you take a look or suggested the alternative of legal secretary too. You have 3 positions, and listening to this discussion, I think that needs to be, approached and adjusted in some manner. But from what I'm hearing between Matt and Michelle is that I don't think there's it seems to be there should be a lot of crossing between all 3. So that if one person is out, the other 3 can plug in and continue. So for me, 3, 2, 1 is a growth, as you stated. Liliana was at a 3, but it sounds like she was pretty close to doing 1's work. And I think so. As a side note, we need to pay attention for that, and I think that would benefit the DA's office in the future to take a look at for each individual.
That was
But again, back to this one, if we went with a 2, you've got a little less of a jump this year, and it also will adjust that jump going into next year.
well, again, I'm inclined to approve this request, but
Sure.
I think that at some point we have to address the elephant in the room, and I'm hoping that if we take action to approve this, that there's an understanding somewhere that we have to address the root problem here, not just be dealing with this, have this 20-minute discussion at a subsequent meeting.
Right, which is a better game plan, I think, is what all 3 of you are kind of asking for.
Yeah, we just need a better. So I mean, I'm sort of taught, and John made this point very early on. So I'm going to throw this motion out, and then we'll see where it goes, because we're going in circles here. I'm going to move to approve the hire for a legal secretary 1 position rather than a legal secretary 3, as requested by the district attorney.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. I will tell you though, Paul, that this discussion is not going to occur. And I'll remind you in the future that there is no incentive here for the district attorney to come back and say, we need a discussion about my 3 legal secretary 1s. If we approve that today, that'll be there forever. He will establish next year's budget based upon the cost of 3 legal secretary 1s and a legal secretary 3. And why would he want to raise that issue again? Because he's getting today what he needs, what he thinks he needs, and is articulated forever. So,
Well,
fine, we can approve this today, but you're not gonna, we've got a mess in front of us. It's messy. We have messy job descriptions. We have a department head who wants to increase position by 3 grades, and that's unprecedented. And so, if you approve the motion today, Grant, mark my words, we will not have this discussion again in the near future.
well, I hope I see your point, but I hope you're wrong, and I hope this is going to take some work, from the district attorney's office to structure this department, and I know they're taxed. There's a lot of there's a lot going on, but we do have to, I guess I'm begging you, Matt, we need to straighten this out. It sounds like a mess. It sounds like a mess, not only for us, but certainly for you. And you probably need some help. I don't know who that help comes from, probably Scott and Rebecca, but I'm looking for a way out of your immediate problem. I wish I saw another, another avenue, so that the chair's comments, could not come to fruition. But I hope he's wrong. But the possibility is that he's very right.
So Matt, I want to make sure you'd have 3 legal secretary 1s you're not going to be advertising or looking for a secretary 3 at all. Is that right?
Correct. We already have one.
So you have one 3. Okay. I wasn't sure where you were at with the 3s.
No, I wasn't
Wait a
asking
minute, I'm
for
sorry.
that position, just to change the classification of the an existing position.
I'm not
So
sure if
that
I
you
understood your
hire a
question.
Person to
John.
fill that, right?
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure. John, I didn't understand your question, but did you ask him if he already had?
So yeah, I
So-
guess I'm trying to understand. Yeah, obviously I don't know how many employees are in each person's department. So
Yeah,
right now, are we going to have? He has two 1s and a 3. Is that right?
No, he has 2 1s and 2 3s.
Okay, 2 1s and 2 3s, and we're trying to
And
change
he
it
wants
over
to
to
go
be
to-
3 and 1.
Yeah. He wants to go to 3 1s
Yeah,
and have 1 3.
gotcha.
That's what the effect of your motion would be today.
Yeah, but that new one has not been hired. You're wanting to do this so that you can hire a 1. That's
Correct.
got that right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So his
And that's the analogy that we made earlier. He has a candidate, but the candidate is overqualified for 3. It's more qualified to be a 1. And that's really what this is about.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Clark, I don't have a candidate. I have, I think we're going to do 7 interviews on Thursday. There are some people who have applied who have excellent qualifications, but I haven't identified a candidate.
I stand corrected. I guess that's what I mean. You have some very, yeah, okay, we understand that. Gentlemen, we have a motion on the floor to approve the DA's request to hire a legal secretary 1 instead of a 3. Want to discuss this further? Or are you ready to move?
Well, just one last point. I'm ready to move. I'm ready to vote for this because I see there's a problem. But, I would love, I don't know how to put this part of it into a motion, but I'd love, to hear from the district attorney and Michelle that, they're going to fix this because I think it's important.
Well, Commissioner Parity, I think that I can tell you that we will definitely make an effort, and we will get updated job descriptions, at least to a current update. And we will do that within the next month so that the commissioners can have a look at that. And I certainly appreciate the consideration for my request, but I'm always willing to make adjustments in the future. Of course, that's difficult when you have somebody hired at a certain rate, but things change quickly in this department, and I'm always willing to make adjustments for the to keep the best interests of the county at heart. I'm not looking to try to ram something through here. I see an issue with the office and with the hiring of somebody who running that front office is so much different than it used to be. It used to be basically answering phones and sticking papers in files, and it's just not that anymore. It has morphed into something that needs a lot of technical knowledge. And I just need to hire somebody that reflects that change in that position. But we are definitely willing to.
Okay, I'm
commissioners.
going to call a vote. All those in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I'm opposed. The motion carries 2-1. Anything further from the DA's office, Matt?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to give the commissioners an update. I think that the bill to separate District 7, Washington, Hancock counties has gone to the governor's office for either signature or veto. So that is going to have some implications in 2022 or 2023, actually, if it is signed into law, we're going to have to get together with Washington County to figure out how to split the district. So I just wanted to let you know that that is something that will be likely upcoming. I'm not sure what the timing of it will be, but it has implications of impacting the budget as well, because right now we have access to Washington County resources in case, if I had two secretaries here go out on family leave or something, or if there was a vacation and an accident, I can pull on the folks in Washington County to help us out. Once the district split, though, that's not going to be an option. So we're looking at some
Is that going to have any?
unprecedented times. What's that?
Is that going to have any effect? Is that going to have any effect on what we did today?
I don't think so. This office will still be run the same. It's just we will have fewer resources on which to draw in case of an emergency. And there could be additional, depending on how the state allocates the budget for the attorneys, I'm hoping to have an additional ADA in this office to help with coverage issues that we're going to run into, because we have the same issue with using Washington County attorneys in emergencies here that we won't have access to once the district is split.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, if we could move on. I need to stop at this point and we're over, but we had Kitty scheduled for 9 o'clock this morning. She has an appointment later this morning that she needs to attend to. So we need to direct our attention to Kitty to talk about the ARP funding. Did we get any documentation with that, Rebecca? Anything in that? I couldn't find anything in that books. We just.
Oh, yeah, you should have gotten that. That should have been in your books.
What tab would that be under?
Well, it should have been under commissioners.
It is in my book.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything under commissioners on mine either.
Hmm.
Okay, that's fine. John, do you have any?
No, I
Have
don't
any?
think so.
I'll resend it.
Okay.
Well, that's right. No, let's hear Kitty's presentation, and some point we'll get some further documentation perhaps. Morning, Kitty. You're on the.
All right, good morning, commissioners. Thank you. So unfortunate that you didn't have this documentation because this may get a little convoluted without it. But to start with, what I did and where I've spent my time is taking that 151-page CFR from the Department of the Treasury and trying to make sense of it. I know you've all have reviewed it. It's a bit long-winded, it's redundant in many places. So I really did just try to create something that was a little bit more simplified. So there's a 9-page document that I provided that really breaks this down in what I hope is a much easier way to sort of review this by the 4 eligible uses that we have been given. And those 4 uses are public health and economic impact. And that they've clumped all of that into the first use, and that in itself is pretty, it's a lot. So I broke that into 1A being public health and 1B being the economic impact. And then eligible use number 2 is replace public sector revenue loss. Eligible use number 3 is premium pay for essential workers. And eligible use number 4 is the water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So I just synthesized all of that information into real quick, easy bullets that you can review, what pages I'm referring to in the 151-page document, any tips they've given, and then really just listing of very specific things taken from the document that are considered straightforward uses of these monies. So that was the first 7 or 8 pages of this document. And then I provided one sheet about the reporting requirements, starting basically August 31st being the first report that will be required. And then finally, the last page, which was really what I'd hoped maybe would be our discussion for today. And it was just things that we need to think about or have conversation about, which included, you know, basically transparency to the public. How do we get their input? How do we share documentation, right? Maybe having a brainstorming session with the commissioners to hear your thoughts and ideas, right? So really around the process and how we're going to tackle this process and how we want to show this process, i.e. transparency to the public at large.
Kitty, before you go any further, we just got a document. Is this the one that Kitty? This is the one that Kitty created for us?
It's the heading should be fund investment. And it should be 9
Yeah.
pages. Yep. And it starts off with
Yes.
eligible use 1A, public health and economic impact.
Okay, I see that. Gentlemen, do you have that document?
I do.
Yeah. It was that was sent to both of us, I think, wasn't it, John?
Yep.
Do you have it in front of you now?
Yep.
Okay.
So really the first 7 pages are me taking from the 151-page document and sort of organizing this in an easier way to look at it and review it. Just because I found that 151-page document very unwieldy.
So
Well, obviously, we can't take time.
I read this.
Go ahead, Paul.
I read this over. Again, this is such a daunting task. I'm trying to figure out where to start. But to me, some of the things that we've talked about, like the entrance to the, to the courthouse and all that. Do you envision that going into number 4, Kitty? Items like that?
I think that what we need to do, quite honestly, is to set up a spreadsheet or a document that we can start to populate with these ideas, right? And then we run them through the test. And, in each of these categories, there are certain tests that must be followed, whether it's, find a need and figure out what the negative impact. So we sort of populate the idea and then we run it through this filter that says, does this meet all of the criteria that Treasury is asking for, right? And then once we get to that point, then maybe it's a point of discussion and then a vote by the commissioners. Okay, we know it meets it. We can get enough documentation, run it through, do all the due diligence, and then a vote by the commissioners that yes, this fits, and that yes, you approve.
As I went through this, number 4 is what interested me the most. Replacing public sector revenue losses, I didn't have a lot of interest there. And, some of these other items, I just, to me, I would like to take this out, and it is an opportunity to address some of the deficiencies in our infrastructure. Whether it be, broadband is one that's spelled out here. I'm not trying to pick on that one, but it is spelled out. But, the county administrators identified a lot of others, and we should be looking to him, to help us identify some of those. And I was just trying to figure out where those fit, but I think I like your model better, where we just have a brainstorming, session for specifically this purpose. We put it in a spreadsheet, and then my guess is you come back and say, okay, yeah, it fits, no, it doesn't fit, and then we can prioritize the ones that fit. Is that what you're envisioning?
That is sort of what I'm thinking, right? I mean, I would assume that you're going to get hit with a lot of requests, a lot of emails, and I think that it would be good to be able to sort of filter those, throw them on a giant spreadsheet that may have public access or not, and then we start saying, yes, this is the category it fits in. Here's really maybe the due diligence we need to do, and yes, it does fit the category. So now it's up to a simple vote. I think so much of this is really about setting up a process that's going to make it easier for the county and the commissioners to kind of get through this, because this is a rather daunting project. And, you know, there's a lot of things to think about. Do we want to make sure that we are hitting all 4 categories? You know, I think in my mind, some of these categories are being hit in other ways, right? I mean, some of the direct mitigation efforts, for example, broadband's another one, you know, figuring out how do we tie into what the state initiative is, right? Where do we fit into that state initiative? We don't have to do it out on our own if we can just leverage some of these monies for initiatives that are happening at the state level or at other levels.
Well, and we are getting those emails, and you know, I've been, you know, hesitant to respond to them because, you know, they're personal opinions at this point, and really there's no place for that yet.
Yeah.
But I like your plan of attack. You know, because a lot of these others, you're right. It's not that I'm saying that I'm not interested, although that was my English. It's that, you know, I wonder if it's our place in county government to address some of these things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Kitty, I got a question. So let's say we get to a point where we've, whatever, you know, picked our 5, 6, whatever things that we want to go forward. It seems to meet all the criteria. What's really going to be the process to make sure that our opinion of it meeting the criteria is one thing, but what's going to happen if we do something and the feds are saying, no, this isn't the right use of the funds? Or how is there an approval process, or how does that all happen?
At this point, there is not an approval process. It is solely in your hands. I mean, you've seen the guidelines that they've given us. I think we adhere to those as closely as we can. There is a website that we can, and I think as this evolves, there may be more information that comes out, because whatever questions that we are having, they're going to be asked by, right, 1,000 other counties,
Yeah.
right? So I think there'll be other ways that we can sort of maybe, you know, create some communication with other counties, maybe within other states or with Treasury. I would think that they're going to have to set up those sort of support systems that help us guide us along this process. I think clearly we need to make sure we can document our reasoning about why we chose a project. Now, I know there's some things that you don't document if it's under 55,000, but I think just to do our, you know, cautionary measures, we document every decision and why we chose it and where we thought we fit. I do think Treasury has given us really broad guidelines, and so I think they're not going to come after any itty bitty, you know, they're not going to go down to that detail, but I think it's always good to CYA.
Sure. Thanks.
And the other
It's
thought
not
I
the itty
had,
bitty ones that
I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead.
it's not the itty bitty projects I'm concerned about, Kitty, because if we screw those up, we can probably find some itty bitty money in our account to cover it. It's those major projects that we think fit, that somebody determines a couple of years down the road doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm really concerned that we're going to commit to some major projects, and one of them we're looking at is better handicapped accessibility to the courthouse, which is going to be an expensive project. And for us to take that on, believing that qualifies, and for somebody to come along a couple of years down the road and say, no, we want our money back,
Yeah.
that would be devastating. And so I'm really hoping that somewhere along the way there is somebody who can sign off and give us positive assurance that this is appropriate use of the funds.
And I think that's a great place to start. We can start digging into is there going to be a connection by state or in Treasury who can sort of run these things through a filter, the things that we feel that we just want to really have that stamp on them to get that comfort level that we're looking for.
When we talked about, I don't know, 3 meetings ago, when we talked, 3 or 4 meetings ago, we talked to the gentleman about the courthouse, Scott. Yeah, I mean, obviously at some point there was going to be some county involvement in that, although we all like to think that there wouldn't be. You know, those are things that those are the type things that I see that getting accomplished, you know, things that need to be accomplished that this makes possible. And I don't, you know, we aren't far enough along on that project or the state. It's really a state project with possibly some implications that we don't even know what those implications are yet. But those are the kinds of things that scare me, is that, you know, we find out that there's a big county nut to cover after it's too late for this. So those are the kind of worries that I have.
Well, I think as Kitty described or set right out, you know, the tone of the conversation is that we need to have a workshop and start just jotting down these projects and go through that. Because then you may get down to it and decide that, you know what, this you know, whether it be attacking the old, you know, taking care of the old jail, or whether it be purchasing another piece of property to do something that we think might fit within the scope of it may just get ruled out right from the beginning. We may not have to extend resources to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's 2 things. We need to sit down with a list, and then once we kind of finalize the list, start looking at projected amounts, because you can spend $10.6 million pretty quickly, and you know, follow that process. And if we get to a point where we really want this project, and it's worth you know, making the effort and using the resources to check in and see if there's a clearinghouse or an approval process of some sort, right, Kitty? I mean, and it may be, and that may buy us some time so that this gets established. I think something is going to have to be developed here, whether it be through NACO or directly to the Treasury. And we do have a couple of connections that once we get the list of projects, I think we can decide then, you know.
So the question is, where do we go from here? Do we need to take some action to schedule a session, or do we need to agree on a plan of attack, or what do we need to do today?
I think got a workshop the next meeting. And if you haven't read this document or at least briefed it, take a look at it, come back with some ideas. You know, some ideas might fit within this first 5.3. Some ideas, because remember, we've only got half of it now, and it'll be another year before we get the other half. So ideas that may take a little more time and can be, you know, maybe delay just a little bit of discussion. Maybe you do a round of grants partially in this first one and then do another one in the second one. You know, I think there are a lot of options, which I think you need to sit down and have a workshop and just kind of think of ideas that, you know, that we've already discussed and new ones that may come.
Well, a workshop that somehow needs to include, you know, municipalities and the UT and, you know, getting that outside, I don't know if I want to call it influence, but point of view,
yeah,
is got to be part of this. Otherwise, we're operating in a vacuum.
One of the things
I
that
go ahead, Kitty.
Scott and I have talked about is maybe adding a page to the county website. And that page is all about this and allows people to put in contact information and any ideas they have, right? That's part of the whole transparency piece of this, that we are soliciting public comment and opinion on this, and that we're looking at every single idea. And it also is a way to provide communication to the public about what work is being done, what projects have been supported. And I think that goes a long ways to helping with that, although that may not do all of it.
So I think you can have individual.
I like that. I like that suggestion. Yeah, I like that suggestion, Kitty, because it gives you an opportunity to review those prior to a meeting and say, this definitely doesn't fit. And this, and so as opposed to somebody saying at a public meeting, I'd like to have you consider doing this with your funds, and now you're gonna have to go back and research. So I like that if we give the public first an opportunity to voice their opinions, comments, suggestions and whatnot on our website. And then perhaps at some point we'll have a public hearing with regards to how we're gonna spend this money. But how do you like that, gentlemen?
I like that idea. I think it sounds good.
Yeah, I like that idea. I'm trying to figure out what kind of timeline it fits in. It's certainly not the next meeting.
Right. I think it also gives you an opportunity to filter all those emails and calls you may be getting and saying, look, we have started a process. Here is the process. Please go fill this information out. We want to hear from you. That information is being tabulated. We're looking at each and every one of these that actually passes the requirements, and we will review them all.
Right, and I think you have some additional time as well because, municipalities, the last I know, still haven't received their amount of money, their funding. I think that's being held up with, the state having to formalize a process in order to release it. So again, as I said, you've got half of it now. You could look at this whole project in stages. You could plan it all out now if you wanted, but I think the first step is maybe a half hour, 45-minute chat like we're having right now at the next commissioners meeting, and for the three of you to bring ideas to the table. Is that what you envision?
It's not going to be
Kitty,
something that's going to get decided quickly. It's with the public input and everything else. There's going to be more than one brainstorm session. Let's just say that. We don't
Right.
have to worry about that.
Right. Which may lead to a public hearing.
I do though.
Yeah.
I do wonder though, out loud though, Kitty, if we've already taken some steps towards one potential project, and that's the handicapped accessibility project. I'm just kind of wondering if you couldn't sit down with Scott, understand what we're looking at, and see if that meets the straight face test at least initially for our discussions, because we are looking at RFQs for architects. And so maybe by the next meeting, you could update us on whether or not that project has any viability.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll just throw out some of the emails that I've gotten and some of the phone calls I've gotten. One's centers around affordable housing. The other centers, the other group centers around broadband initiatives. And I don't know specifics, but those are the topics.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think maybe to get ready for the next meeting is I draft out a process. Here's a process that is going to be followed, and you can review that and we can tighten that up. So if anybody asks, how are you guys spending this money, right? That we can address that with this. Here is our process. And if you agree, then we'll start on that website, that web page off of the website. And then I'll start looking into the handicap accessibility of the courthouse as a potential. And that may help me dig out what are the other resources we have to tap into for questions that we might have.
Yeah, because quite frankly, how I've been laying out, answering folks that I have, answered is that, we need to develop we're going to be developing a process to deal with this. We have not delved into specifics because we just don't even know what the process is to do that yet.
Right.
Kitty,
A lot of nonprofits want a piece of this money.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up. I've been doing a little bit of reading on the nonprofit situation, and obviously very deserving, but I do know of nonprofits who had a banner year last year.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, right?
Yes.
And that there is a little straight face test that you have to say if financially you were better off last year, then that may not pass muster. So there are some certain requirements you're going to fit in with each of these categories.
and I think that comes with establishing the outline and details for any project. So if you're talking about nonprofits, you have to articulate, a loss due to the COVID and so on. Kitty, if we are going to have a kind of a workshop next meeting, I'd like to set that at a time certain, so that, and advertise so the public knows that and they can join us if they'd like. Are you prepared to give us a time certain right now that you could set aside an hour?
Are we talking in August,
We're talking July 20th.
July 20th? Okay. Yeah, I am,
Is that too
I'm totally free. Totally free. So you tell me.
totally free?
Yep.
Let's set, Rebecca, how about 10 o'clock for that public hearing, not a public hearing, but that workshop on ARP funding. We'll set that for 10 o'clock, advertise that on our website, and have that on our agenda. Okay?
And, it seems like the first agenda of the month is always the busiest one. Probably we should be, have this subject on,
A reoccurring basis of the second meeting.
yeah, that's what my,
Yeah. I agree.
Very good. Then are we ready to move on? And Kitty has her matching orders, and we'll talk to her again on the 20th.
yeah, I just want to
Kitty,
make,
if you just sit.
I just want to make sure, Kitty, you got, and Scott and Rebecca, you got what you needed out of us today?
I think we have a general framework to start really digging in now. Thank you.
Thank you.
So are we prepared to come back next meeting with some suggestions for how to spend the funds? Is that part of the process for next meeting, or?
Yeah.
Is that jumping? It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have much beyond what I've articulated so far, but, because it is very complicated.
But I think a general part of this is getting those brainstorming ideas down, right?
Yeah.
And that's the nature of brainstorming. Ideas will create other ideas. They may not all float to the top at the end, but
Yeah.
I think you'll see that there'll be a lot of stones that can be uncovered through this.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, then, if there's nothing further, thank you, Kitty. We'll talk to you again on the 20th.
Thanks, Kitty.
All right.
Do we
Thank you,
have
everyone.
Kitty? Do we have Kitty's contact information in case we wanted?
Well, Scott does, we can filter through.
Yeah,
I think it was in the last email.
okay.
All right. Thank you, commissioners.
In the last email, okay, very good. Yes, that's right. Yep, thank you very much. All right, let's move on then, gentlemen. We'll move on now to the jail. Jail Administrator Tim Richardson is on with us this morning. Morning, Tim.
Good morning. I have just a couple of quick things I think should go easy. The first one is request approval to promote Blake Morey to full-time corrections officer at pay grade 9A with full benefits effective July 10th.
So moved.
2021.
Question.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
I am myself, motion carries.
Second is request approval to extend corrections officer Michael Butters work under classification for another 30 days effective July 3rd, 2021.
so moved as recommended.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
and I am myself, motion carries.
And the last is request to approve to work corrections officer Ernest Fitch at a classification effective July 3rd, 2021, following the guidelines set by the current union agreement.
so moved as recommended.
Seconded.
I'm interested why you put that last sentence in there, Tim.
Well, just to fall within the 30 days, just so everybody knows that we are working with the union, following the guidelines to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks and we're following as required.
Yeah, I think it's
I didn't
important.
know, but it might be. Pardon? What'd you say, Paul?
Yeah, I was thankful that he put that in the memo, and when I wrote up the motion, I used his language, and I think that's good language.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Anything further from the jail, Tim?
That is it. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your complete report.
Thank you.
Then let's move on now to unorganized territories. Good morning, Millard.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Gentlemen, you have Millard's report.
I'm going to move to accept and file the UT Director's report as presented.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Moving on, Millard.
Yes, Commissioners. We have the solid waste agreement with the town of Cherryfield.
I'm going to move to approve and sign the solid waste agreement for T10 SD with the town of Cherryfield as presented.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carried. Moving on, Millard.
The solid waste agreement with the town of Steuben for Township 7.
I'm going to move to approve and sign solid waste agreement for T7 SD with the town of Steuben as presented.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Moving on, Millard.
And the fire suppression and emergency response agreement for Fletcher's Landing with the city of Ellsworth. This had been a one-year agreement, and the new proposal is for a three-year agreement with a stipend increase from 15,000 to 17,500.
I'm going to move to approve and sign the fire suppression emergency response agreement for Fletcher's Landing T8 SD with the city of Ellsworth as presented.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries. Millard, anything else from the UT this morning?
That is all I have. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
And let's move on to the maintenance department. Morning, Dennis.
Yes, good morning.
Gentlemen, do you have Dennis's monthly report?
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to
Any
move.
discuss-
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to move to accept and file a maintenance director's report as presented in his memo dated June 30th, 2021.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries. Moving on, Dennis.
Yes, I'm asking that the commission accept the resignation of janitor Gary Brooks effective June 25, 2021.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries.
Yes, item C, I ask that the commissioners consider reclassifying the custodian position to the position of crew leader. This is, I don't know how much you've been able to read about what we're proposing, but this is something that over the course of the last year and a half has been something that evolved, and many things made themselves aware along with the pandemic, and like the issue of inmate help even was prior to the pandemic. We were having very spotty coverage, and this move would really allow us to meet our needs, and wouldn't I believe Scott put it well when he said that we're reallocating resources to solve problems instead of a new hire. And this is also something that we could fund completely with reallocation of some of our part-time funds.
This made perfect sense to me.
Present-
Thank you.
Well, presently, the custodian, this is a custodian's position that you want to make crew leader, correct?
Yes.
What's the grade for custodian?
Right now is grade 5.
5?
And in fact, there is a distinction between the janitors and the custodian, in that the custodian does the skilled work of the crew with respect to floor treatments and the application of strippers and then cleaners and then waxes and the operation of a wide variety of machinery. Anyway, in my mind, justifies a distinction regarding pay grade anyway, but that's not part of this discussion. The duties, as you can see, are expanding a bit and likely to expand even more than we've allowed for. We're really looking at this as an opportunity.
The job description we have is the proposed job description for this position, correct, Dennis?
Yes, that's right.
So why does it say grade 7-8? What's that mean?
Is because when this reclassification is made, that we'd like to make the jump to that grade based on leadership duties and expanded duties that are inherent in the position, but also expanded responsibilities.
My question though is that which do you want, 7 or 8?
Well, that was a discussion that Scott and I had. I'd like to see, I think 8 ultimately is where this lands, but we thought an incremental approach, we could start with 7, or perhaps based on merit or, educational or training milestones over the course of the next year or so, move it up to grade 8, where it would reside.
Well, is that based upon the quality of the individual?
It is kind of.
That's not the way to use the grade system. The grade system should define the position, not the person. And so you should articulate to us, based upon the required qualifications and duties, responsibilities, that this meets grade 7 or 8, and then we can act on that.
Yeah, but there is some movement to responsibility, right? And that's the reason for this step, is that?
Additional duties and response and leadership responsibilities, yes.
And
No, I don't know if we'd exactly nailed down. I put this through the same point system that we used as a part of the compensation advisory committee, and I know Commissioner Clark's aware of this intimately, and that's where we can't. If I'm evaluating the leadership side of it, the point value is over 500, but as we start today, this is a new position. I think you're asking a lot of any individual to start a new position and be 100% at that particular moment. Even a qualified individual, everyone needs training and
Well, my point was that I read this to be not, merit, but actually moving from one position to another is how I
Agreed.
understood it, but you did say.
Yeah, you understand it correctly. It's a new position, yes.
But regardless, gentlemen, of whether or not you have an individual who's going to be moving into this, or we're going to be hiring new for this position, that grade should be set based upon duties, responsibilities, not upon the individual that's going to assume that.
Great.
job.
You're correct.
So,
You're right about that. And
if
my,
this is truly a supervisory job, and by definition it appears to be, by crew leader, and that is in excess of 500 points, it makes it an 8, then that's what it should be, Dennis. It should be an 8.
agreed.
So, gentlemen, I'd
Agreed.
like to change his proposal, not change, but clarify his proposal to be compensation code grade 8 as we decide on this.
Well, ultimately, I agree, but I think you're sort of developing you're sort of hiring a person at one grade, and then if they can take on additional responsibility, then it's they move to grade 8, as opposed to just hiring them as grade 8 and it doesn't work.
No, Paul, I think you're mistaken. What I'm saying is that if and when somebody is made the maintenance crew leader, they will go right to grade 8. It's a grade 8 position.
I see what you're saying. You're not hiring them as a grade. Okay, now I understand.
In other words, we're going to eliminate this 7 altogether. This is a grade 8
Yeah,
position.
I'm perfectly fine with that. This was an attempt to try to be creative in making a smooth transition and, trying to appease all quarters. But in the spirit of the way this thing is laid out and defined, you're correct. It's the man fulfills the description, not the other way around. And I do agree with that. I think everyone does.
Yeah, and Chair, that's exactly what the task that I gave to Dennis is to sit down and start identifying all these things. And then when Dennis did mention, well, I'll run it through the point system, I said, yes, there you go. I fully agree that it needs to be, set at one grade. And then if we have the appropriate person, we'll plug them in there, whether it's somebody turn or if we, future hire.
Yeah, so and where I was mistaken is you're not hiring the crew leader, you're.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
I'm sorry. What did you just say, Paul? He is going to hire a crew leader. Hire in the sense that he may be transferring a present employee into that position, but
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
This is a new position, but he's going to be bringing in perhaps an existing employee to fill it. Correct,
Right.
Dennis?
Yes.
Yes, if we have the opportunity, we wanted the Clarence to be able to do this. Yeah.
But the important thing to remember is that he's going to eliminate a custodian position in order to make this happen. So the net effect is that, would you say it was a 6 for custodian, Dennis?
Custodian is 5.
So right, he'll eliminate a grade 5 position and establish a grade 8 position. Any further discussion on Dennis's request?
No.
So I think my motion is okay here. I'm going to move to reclassify the custodian position as crew leader, step 8, as proposed and recommended.
Seconded.
And I like that motion because it clearly states that he's eliminating a custodian position. So he's changing from custodian to a crew leader. So I like that motion the way it was worded.
So my wording's okay?
Yes, in fact, it's better than okay. I think it takes care of any ambiguity as regards to the custodian position. That's being eliminated, and we're now establishing the crew leader. So, yeah, I like that.
Can I ask a question, Phil?
Absolutely.
Does your motion approve the job description, or do you want to make a separate motion to approve that?
I envisioned it doing that, but probably let me work on that.
Rebecca, have you reviewed the job description?
Yes.
Do you feel it's in order?
Yep, yep. Dennis and I worked on it together.
Good. So you would sign the proposed job description?
Yep.
Obviously, Dennis, you would, huh? So
Yes.
gentlemen, the job description is in order for our approval, and I really think Rebecca's right that we need to make that either part of the motion or a separate motion to approve that.
How about this? Move to reclassify the custodian position and approve the job description as presented for crew leader, step 8, as proposed and recommended. Does that do it?
John, are you okay with that?
Yep, I'm good with it. Second that.
We have a motion made and seconded. Rebecca, you okay with the motion now? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And the last item, I'm going to move to approve the removal of Nicholas Jewett from the county payroll.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries. Dennis, anything else this morning?
That's it, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
You heard the discussion we had with Kitty Barbie this morning with regards.
I did. I did.
And just to refresh our memories, where are we in the RFQ process for?
Yes, well, we've had 3 respondents, 1 site visit and another site visit scheduled for tomorrow morning at 8:30.
What's the deadline for
And,
submission? What's the,
It's the end of this week. It's the, whatever this, this then
Friday is? Would you,
Friday. I guess that's the 9th, yeah.
would you be prepared to bring us something by information for the next meeting?
I think so, yeah. It seemed to be fitting hand in glove with the discussions regarding the project, so,
All right, in the
Yeah.
meantime, Kitty's supposedly going to sit down with Scott and understand that project to see if that, how close that comes to meeting our eligibility.
yeah,
Thank you.
well, looking forward to it.
If nothing else from maintenance, we'll now move on to the RCC.
Yes, thank you.
Morning, Bob.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Gentlemen, you have the monthly report from our RCC
Yes.
director.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to move to accept and file the RCC director's memo as presented.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and myself, motion carries.
Thank you. Other item, accept the resignation of RCC dispatcher Anastasia Dehoff Osage effective June 20th, 21. She'll be moving on to move to Japan.
Wow. Move to, so moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries.
Also requesting approval of upward transfer of legal secretary 3 Lilliana Nevels to RCC dispatcher at step 9A effective July 3rd, 2021.
So moved as requested.
Seconded.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries.
Thank you.
Anything further from RCC, Bob?
Nope, just getting busy.
I'm sure you are.
Like it.
Yep, thank you very much. Scott, are you filling in this morning for IT? It's a pretty
Yeah, I
straight.
guess I am. Yeah, he's had a busy, he's actually on vacation, but he said he's actually working from home today. We've had a busy morning. But yeah, just Chris Grindle was the former IT person we had hired, and I'm not sure why he's still on the payroll, but I think the request is simply a housekeeping item back.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna move to remove Chris Grindle from the county payroll.
Seconded.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and myself, motion carries. We'll go to the treasurer's memo.
Move to approve the treasurer's warrant as presented.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and myself, motion carries. I guess I shouldn't complain because I used to complain we got too much information from the treasurer, but it seems like we've gone from too much to almost nothing. It's, okay, I guess that's sign of the times.
Well, Chair, next meeting I should have, what I didn't have is I could have had an AR update, which I didn't get to with the holiday and everything, but next meeting I should have a second quarter, everything should be in a filter, so I'll have a second quarter financial analysis for you. Along with the AR.
Okay. Then let's move on to county administrators. Agenda item 11. Scott?
Yeah, I think the caucus is actually going to go into that.
Yeah.
Usually takes care of that for us.
Sure. So I just wanted to remind you that the commissioner caucuses need to happen. And that they have to happen 100 days before January 1st, which falls on September 23rd. So that sheet that I have put together for you sort of tells you what you'll need to do to make that happen. I know this is a new thing for Commissioner Parity, but Commissioners Clark and Wambacher are pretty familiar with the process.
So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The first is, I read this over and there's nothing saying that somebody who's termed out whose term has expired can't serve again, right?
Yes, and that's actually pretty common. That happens pretty frequently.
Okay, and then what happens? You set the caucus?
Yeah, so actually the commissioners do that themselves. So what you'll do is find a time and a place that you want to hold the caucus. And then we'll prepare the paperwork once you tell us where that is. And we'll send it out to all the towns. They have to notify, they have to notify in the same way that they notify, what we have to notify residents, the same way it happens for a town meeting. We have to use that process. So we send the notice to them, they post it, we get the return back.
So it should be within that district someplace.
Yes. Mhm.
You don't have to meet in your district, but you have to elect somebody within your district.
Yeah.
A good example is that Township 9's in my district, and I had an individual who's going to run, but there's no municipal meeting place there, so we're going to meet in Franklin, which was out of my district. That's not a problem, as long as the person you're electing is a resident in the district you serve.
So I was just thinking for efficiency, all three caucuses could be held at the same place within, a half hour of each other just for ease, but that's traditionally not the way it is.
No, in fact, more often they're on different days.
Mm.
So they're very much separate of each other.
It would be nice if we knew the dates, like for all three of you, so that we could just do like the one advertising, if you kept those within close enough notification.
Well, that's exactly why I was thinking they should all be at the same day at the same place.
Yeah, that might be pushing it, but we can see. I mean, yeah, the three of you can agree to that.
ease of workload for Rebecca and workload for the commissioners, but I'll just defer to, to tradition here. I just,
Usually, Paul, all you're really doing is reporting back the minutes from the caucus, essentially what the results were. So it really isn't a lot of work necessarily for after the fact for Rebecca. We're just kind of telling her what happened and giving her the minutes. So it's not a big deal. The only thing I worry about doing it in one location, it really is going to make if you're trying to get local people to show up in the district, it's better to have it in their district rather than make them, come to Ellsworth. I'm not going to get it's hard enough to get people, like to Deer Isle to come to Ellsworth. I'd rather have it like midway in the district where it's kind of a drive, not a huge drive for everybody. But it depends.
This is kind of the frig, Paul, with this system. It's kind of like the fox watching the hen house, but if the county commissioner doesn't go out and recruit somebody to serve, those more often than not will go unfilled. And so we're almost out there trying to find the people who are going to oversee our decisions and make comments. You know what I mean? So I've said in the past and whatnot, this is really contrary to what I think the process should have been. But the public in general and whatnot doesn't take enough interest in this there's very often very seldom is there a contested race. And so personally for me is that I have to go out and find somebody. And then once I find somebody, I like to find an area that's close to where that candidate is and have my caucus there.
well, that and getting enough people to come to the caucus to elect somebody is the other thing.
Well, I also have to do that, make sure that I get my, that I have enough people there. Oh, it only takes one vote, but.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask is, is it out of the question to think that you could hold the caucus by Zoom again if you wanted to, because it is easier for people to meet. But I don't know if that is, we did it last year, obviously that way, but is it, are we bending the rules of the statute by doing it that? I'm just saying it's just a possibility to consider.
Well, there is some new legislation that's just come out that I'm starting to review now that's addressing public meetings, especially in regards to these situations. I think you kind of have to, you're almost going to have the opportunity for both. So I'm not sure what the direct answer to your question is right now. If you just did it Zoom, but I'm thinking you're supposed to be the ones making the decisions are supposed to be, the leadership is supposed to be physically there.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Nope.
So the past practice has been for the commissioner of the district to sort of seek somebody to run for this position and somebody to nominate him and elect them. But there's nothing precluding from, a current member of doing the same thing and electing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that traditionally, Paul, that's been the easiest way to fill these is to see if the person going out wants to come back for another 3-year term.
Right.
That makes it real easy. And because if they don't, then you've got to start the search. So, I would suggest that be your first one if you have no opposition, to check with the individual that's termed out to see if they want to serve another 3-year term.
Yeah, well, but I was just structurally, I was, a commissioner could be surprised by an insurgent, other members wanting to stack the deck or. Do you usually go, so the notification to the towns, that's done, Rebecca, you handle all that. The only thing we have to do is run the caucus and get people to attend and create some minutes,
Yeah, and those can be just simple handwritten, who was there, yeah, just 2 or 3 lines, really.
Now, how do you, because those at the caucus or those caucusing need to be from your district, how do you ensure that?
It's a great question.
The honor roll, Paul. It really is. And it's simply being a resident. It's not a registered voter or anything like that. It's a
Yeah.
resident of the district. So, and it's just, in bottom line is if you have one candidate, it's never an issue. If somebody voted for that candidate that wasn't in there, as long as you had one valid vote, you're fine. When you have contested races, and that could be an issue. The biggest problem is that somebody who has a post office box in Bucksport but lives in Prospect, something like that could be an issue. But if they're not totally honest about where their residency is.
Well, and when you say run, you don't know if somebody's running till the caucus, right?
If you have any reason to believe that you have a voting individual who isn't a resident, take a time out. Doesn't take long to check that, their residential status. And, you can simply ask them for proof of residency.
Okay, so by next meeting, you need some dates from us, Rebecca.
Well, it really needs to happen sometime before the end of August. I mean, it could go into September. That wouldn't be a big deal. I just didn't want to blindside you. It's something, there is some preparation that has to happen on this end. And it's something that you'll kind of want to consider how you want it to play out. So it doesn't have to be by next meeting. In fact, that would probably be pretty early.
There is a timeline, though. We have to get it in by a certain date before the caucus. When's that, Rebecca?
Yes, so town meetings typically have to be posted 7 days before. So we'd have to make sure we got the notices out to the towns at least that.
Okay.
We
So I
really need
need-
a couple weeks anyway.
Okay, but you'd like a date by sooner than later, a date and a location.
Yeah, and a time, yep. It would just, it's pretty easy.
So the only other thing I wanted to say about just going to the same well again is from just the 3 years that I've been here, it gets a little old seeing the same people again and again on the BAC. So you might think to yourself, if there's some other people in the town, maybe, fresh faces aren't necessarily a bad thing. So,
Well, it needs to be a municipal officer.
yeah,
Mike.
but there's usually have a few there, and there's multiple towns that you represent. So,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm nothing against anybody. I'm just saying, a little variety isn't always a bad thing.
Yeah, variety and experience. It's a fun.
Yeah, sure.
You're
Yeah.
looking for a rebel rouser, aren't you, John? I know. Okay. Anything further? You all set with the caucus? Paul, you all set?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna have some questions for Rebecca and Scott, but
Because you're going to want to be the minute taker for your meeting, and you're going to have to, to give Rebecca minutes.
yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
Minutes and running the meeting, I have no problem with. It's some of these other, finding a warm body to do this is not going to be easy in this district.
It's unfortunate, but that's absolutely true. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. There's a lot of people have questions after the
It
fact.
wouldn't be the first time that a position's gone unfilled.
Right.
And municipal officer means that's an elected, that's not a manager, or that's not a representative, that is an elected person.
It can be a
Right, and
man.
I think it's specific to like a select person. It can't be like a road commissioner, or I think it has to be.
It can't be town administrator or manager, can it, Rebecca?
No, it needs to be a municipal officer, which I think is defined in statute by, that position that's on the select board or city council or something like that.
Yeah.
Really? I thought we had managers on here before.
Well,
Uh,
like
Kathleen's
Kathleen, of
manager,
course,
but
is
she's
the
a
town
member of the
manager, but
public.
She's taken the public spot.
Right.
Right.
I see. Maybe that's confusion. Okay.
That's what was the confusing part for me.
Yeah.
I'll get,
Yeah, you might want to just glance through the titling section on that. What is it, 38, Rebecca?
763.
763, 38, 763, Paul lays out. And if you think the process is ambiguous, try to figure out what their duties and responsibilities are.
I would need a charter.
Okay, if nothing further with regards to caucuses, then let's move on. Item B, we were working towards hearing a couple more appeals, even though they were related, same property owner on two different properties. But it came from the town of Sullivan, and Scott and I were talking, and we were wondering if perhaps because there was a pending case in Superior Court on our denial of a previous abatement request that hasn't been heard yet, it might be prudent to wait and see if we could get some direction from the court based upon the present case that they have. And so we consulted with Ed Barrett, our attorney. Ed suggested that it was a good course of action and that we should try to ask the town and the appellant to agree to perhaps 60-day notice and see where the court is at that point and either hear the abatement or have another continuance. So if by agreement, gentlemen, we can direct Scott to contact the parties, see if they're willing to a 60-day continuance under the pretense of that we want to hear that from the court before we hear their appeal.
Yeah, I
I'm in
believe
favor of
it's actually the applicant's decision whether or not to approve that. So, yeah, yeah, like I said, I think I sent out an update that he had some other questions for me, so I'm prepared to have this discussion, and I'm hoping he cooperates, I would assume.
Well, I read through that manual, and to me, this is pretty straightforward, and there's not a lot of room for opinion, and there's, so I even hate the idea. I would like the idea to come from them that they want to hear the outcome of the court as opposed from us, because it sounds like we're trying to, sell them a delay, in other words.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what made me feel a little uncomfortable with that. I mean, Ed agreed and I somewhat agreed, but I'm not sure we're in a position to be making requests. We're in a position just to hear when requested to do so. And, this is one of those places where we have to be very, very, very careful not to overstep our boundaries, because there are very strict boundaries as I read that. There's only really two reasons where you can deny or approve an appeal. So, and really only one strong one. The other one's sort of arbitrary and could get you into trouble. So that's my hesitation.
Well, first of all, Paul, we are ethically required to hear that appeal.
Exactly.
Statutorily, though, the statute has left us the ability not to hear that. And in the event that happens, and a 60-day period has lapsed, the appellant can consider that a denial and appeal directly to the court. So,
correct.
And there's some merit. There is some merit in here to not hearing any of these because of that. And the reason I say that is that if we hear an appeal and deny that, and it goes to Superior Court, the court's going to review the county's basis for denying that. But if if we don't hear that case and the appellant appeals because we didn't hear the case, then they're going to have to appeal the town's basis for denying that. And so here we are faced with attorney's fees for substantiating our basis for denial, when if we hadn't heard it at all, we wouldn't have a dog in this fight. It would be between the town and the appellant. Now, I know that's ludicrous to say that we're not going to hear any more appeals, but it is, to me, that it is, first of all, it is kind of an issue when we're making a legal determination based upon this appeal, that an attorney who later has to defend that decision, who wasn't involved in helping us prepare that decision. And even Ed Barris says he's concerned about some of the opinions we had about the town's assessing abilities. And probably had he been representing us at an appeal hearing, he would have cautioned us against making those comments. But so.
Well, and here's the other thing is, I personally feel that we should have an attorney at that appeal advising us so that we don't miss that.
And that just raises the cost of our obligations.
I agree, but it also could be, you could look at it as a cost controlling measure also.
I'm not sure.
I don't know how appeals are handled elsewhere. I mean, this is all new to me. I'm just going by what I've read.
Do we have an idea whether whether we're really going to have an answer back on the appeal within the 60 days that we're trying to propose?
My guess is no.
I would guess no. Not only, but one of the biggest reasons is the courts are just getting going again, and I think that they're focusing more on the criminal than they are the civil. So it could be a while before we get that. Still, I think it's prudent for us, if we're not going to have an attorney representing us at appeal hearings, that we do get some sense from the court on a basis that we could use for denying or complying with an appeal. And that was my point here, is that if we could hear from the courts about how Sullivan's doing their evaluations before hearing this next round, we might help us craft a better decision that wouldn't get appealed to the courts.
Well, what happens in other counties? Do they have legal representation? I mean, to me, there's certain things that you can hear and there's certain things that you can't hear based on that manual.
Yeah, but the things you can't hear are pretty straightforward issues. There's very few that.
Well, no, they might not be. If somebody says, brings up something that, I don't know what happened in prior appeals, but just from Ed Bear's response, it looks like that may have happened. So, and Scott, in other counties, do they have representation? I mean,
it varies. It varies. As I said last meeting too, there are a couple of counties, and I know the interest is starting to grow to at least try and establish, but just like with the BAC, it's hard to find people to establish a board, a commissioner's board of appeals, like you have in your, in some towns that would hear this rather than the commissioners, which may include, an attorney, although not representing the county, but, might be able to offer some sort of pro bono advice on the spot.
so, let's go back to the prior appeal. Who did the findings of fact? Who did all that? Was that done by the commissioners? Because I wasn't there, so
Each commissioner basically chimed in on a finding of fact. So in other words, each of us, and Scott took those comments from each of us and went out and crafted a statement of fact that reflected all of our comments. Correct, Scott?
Yes.
So basically, that was a culmination of the three commissioners' decision to the find of how they voted based upon their finding of fact.
Well, yeah, but remember that's, to me, that's sort of contradictory to what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, as a group, issue findings of fact.
Well, what he did was he took everybody's comments, constructed a finding of fact that we all came back, said, yes, we can agree to that. And so it was a culmination of everybody's comments, and then it was later agreed to by the board.
Right. It's processed into what's called the order.
Yeah,
Order from the commission and the decision, but yeah.
and that's not something that this, that's something that we would, wow, I don't know. I would think that having an attorney advise us is not a bad thing, but there's a cost to that. And, you know, again, I got to refer to tradition. I don't know how this is done.
Can I throw this up?
I can tell you, Paul, that in the few years that I've been here, whatnot, with the several appeal hearings we've had, we've only had one go to court. So the cost of this appeals would dramatically increase if we had an attorney present at every appeal hearing, as opposed to just waiting for those that got appealed to the courts. So, but I can tell you, Paul, I don't care what you read in that thing. No, this is one area that citizen government like us is woefully unprepared to handle.
Yeah.
This is really, to me, it's one of the most difficult parts of this job, because it's so technical and so legal in nature. And the more I read that book, the more confused I am about what I can use for a basis for denial or
Well, and as I read it, there's only one, and that's equality.
Pretty much. Can I throw this out? What if you heard the abatements? What if you use the same process you've been trusted? And Paul, you're new to this, and you follow through with it, and you issue a decision. And in the meantime, they make a decision on the cases before Superior Court, and there is a corrective action, and it's quite an obvious corrective action. Is there anything stopping us from not having to go to court and settle, basically use that same corrective action with the two new applicants?
here we go again. This board has traditionally done this. I don't know how many times over the years. We consult with an attorney, we get their advice, and then we do something contrary than what the attorney wants to do. Ed Barra said, get a continuance. Let's wait to hear from the courts to see if we get some guidance from them before you proceed with another abatement hearing. And that was our attorney's recommendation to us. And
Well, he agreed. He agreed, but really the ball's not in our court. We're not, all we can do is tell the applicant, hey, we got a decision that's in court. It might help us with guidance on, hearing your case. Are you willing to, to postpone this? If he says no, then.
Right. That was my game plan. Yeah.
I think we should ask him.
and that's been the game plan all along.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what Ed Barra says. See if you can get the parties to agree to a continuance. Now,
Yeah,
if he says definitely not, I want to go ahead, he risked, being denied, when if the courts had told us that we erred in the first time, we might have granted it. So that's fine. If the appellant says, no, I want to hear the case, good, bring her on.
so here's what my thought was. My thought was to set a date now and ask them if they consider a continuance based on what you just said, Mr. Chair. That's what I thought.
Well, I think that date has been set. They want July 20th as a date that's been set. So that date has been set.
Okay,
So what we're going to do, we've already done what you want to do, Paul. We've set a date. Now we're going to see if they'll reconsider a continuance until the court acts and see what they say.
Right.
If not, we're on for the 20th.
Right.
okay. I was under the impression that you needed formal action to set the date today, but I guess not.
Well, I think by agreement, we'll know that it'll be on the agenda come the 20th. Well, we just need by agreement whatnot to direct Scott to talk to the applicant to see if they'll agree to a continuance.
Right. The reason the date was set is I have timelines. You have to give them a 21-day notice. And if we didn't do the 20th, then either we have to agree to an extension or he could just be on the 60 days and the applicant could take it as a denial and not come before us. So I have to struggle with, getting the information, take the application, send it to the town, get theirs, make sure all parties have an appropriate amount of time with the evidence, and then hit that date as best as we can.
All right. So I support us asking for the 60-day continuance. If they go for it, great. If not, obviously we'll be talking about it at the next meeting.
Makes sense to me.
All right, good, thanks.
Good. I guess that's our course of action. Then Scott, you let
Yep.
us know what the applicants say.
Yep. Thank you.
Scott, any news on the finance position?
No, it's really been put on the back burner lately with everything else going on. I don't even believe we've had any more applications, and I think if I can find some time to sit down, and which ironically is, that's one individual that could help me, but we're getting through.
Very good then. Gentlemen, I asked to have the COVID-19 procedures put on the agenda so that we could talk about a next meeting. There was some talk about meeting back in person again for the second meeting in July, which is the 20th. Is that still the case? Are you still interested in meeting in person, or do you want to continue Zoom meetings for a while? What's your pleasure there?
I'm all for meeting again.
Meeting in person, John?
Yep.
Okay. Paul, you all set with meeting in person?
I am, it's just, this is awfully convenient, but I mean, it's really not the proper way is to meet in person. I think that probably it makes for a better meeting and better interaction, especially if we're going to hear an appeal.
Right. And I did want to point out that the applicant actually, one of the statements that he sent to me, an email, was that he would rather have the appeal heard in person. He would rather appear in person than by Zoom. He's not a computer person or comfortable with Zoom, so.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our meeting then. Are we going right back to the way because Paul has never been to one of our meetings. I mean, but as far as the seating arrangements, allowing general public admission, is there any, what is your pleasure there with regards to how we operate our meeting? John, I mean,
Yeah, I think I'm open to it just being back to the way it was, with us still trying to make an effort to making the meeting accessible online if the technology is in place. Obviously, if it's not in place yet, that's fine. But I want us to keep that in mind, that that's the ultimate goal, to keep a public presence online for the meeting.
so that technology, if I understand it correctly, doesn't give them the ability for interaction. It simply allows them to watch the meeting progress. Is that correct, Scott?
I would defer to Beck. She's been working with Chuck on that, but.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, what we have now does give them the ability to interact with us if you choose that.
Yeah.
So
Do we really want that if we go back to a public meeting? In other words, if you go to City of Ellsworth, you can watch the process going on, but you can't interact. Isn't that correct, Rebecca, with the cities?
well, I don't know about the city of Ellsworth. But one thing that I guess maybe we should consider is, what is your expectation for department heads and people that you expect presentations from? Do you want them present? Because or do you want to give them the choice, I guess?
Well, my feeling is consistency. If we're making arrangements to accommodate department heads, we sort of may have to make accommodations to accommodate the public. And out of fairness, that's just my personal opinion. If we're gonna start in-person meetings, I think they're in-person meetings. You know, and I don't know how they were run in the county prior, but in the municipalities that I know of, you know, you can watch the meeting, but you couldn't participate unless you were there. And, you know, there's some reasons that we could argue about for days, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I happen to think that's a good thing. If you're, you know, if you want to come before a board, I think you need to, you know, come before the board. So I know that does inconvenience staff, you know, and our department heads. And, you know, because a lot of them do, you know, written reports and written, you know, what they're seeking from us. You know, this meeting was very evident what they were asking. I'm not sure we need their presence there. You know, we have our administrator, who's sort of a go-between between them, and if they have, you know, if they feel they need to come before us with something, great. But I don't think that each time they should have to. That's why we have written reports, and that's why we take action to accept and file them.
I guess my concern about that is just the back and forth and questions that might come up from something, obviously. So I'm not sure how we would ask questions about a request if they weren't there.
And a good example would be, you know, with Matt Foster today. I mean, if Matt thought that was a pretty straightforward request and didn't appear, we wouldn't have been able to have this interchange that we had this morning. So I don't want to pick and choose which ones that require interaction and don't. I think if you want to be heard, if you have issues that you want us to take action on, you better be there. I have a representative there so that we can make inquiry if we want.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I don't think the
Partly agree with that. But for instance, the RCC, you know, that's all very straightforward stuff. Doesn't need a lot of application. You know, it was all laid out in his memo.
But, you know, so on that point, you know, that discussion, the one thing that was on my mind, which I, you know, to my own fault, was kind of wondering, you know, a big point of his report was about his number of calls going up. And I'm kind of wondering whether this is a prelude to, are we staffed correctly? So that was my fault for not bringing up that question during the meeting right then. But that's the kind of thing that can get brought up during a meeting if somebody's present. That's the only thing that's my only point.
Yeah, I just find it daunting that, you know, every department head.
Gotcha.
At every.
Well, keep in mind, most of the department heads are right in that same building. So it's not like they're not walking down 2 stairs and in the meeting room. So
I don't see this as a huge issue or any issue at all. Right?
We make exceptions for those that have to travel. We always have the airport manager first if we can, so that he has a time certain and that's set around all day, where other department heads can run up when it's their turn in the barrel. So that's really not the issue here. I'm concerned that we're going to come back and start getting involved in new technology that we're going to have to learn. If we're going to go back to the way we used to do it, I'd like to do it the way we used to do it. And if you want to add a component that says we're going to monitor and transmit to the public what you're doing, like the city of Ellsworth, I don't have a problem with that. Go ahead. But if we're going to have a system where there's interaction and some people are coming in person and some people are going to interact, you know, that's learning Zoom all over again. And I'm not looking forward to that.
That's Zoom times 2.
Right.
Yeah, I think the city of Ellsworth, the last time I knew it was, they had somebody monitoring the Facebook, and so you could submit questions through Facebook or whatever they were using, and that would be addressed. You know, the question would be given to the board, and the board would respond. And then the other thing too is I have to look at this new legislation that kind of defines what the new approach is, especially with regards to hybrid. both in person and electronic. Seems to give a lot more credence to, the availability of not having to be here physically, so.
So, yeah, I mean, I kind of get the vibe from the crowd, but so what we've heard from the meetings from the public is they want it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to support not having it. And if you guys vote to go the other way, that's fine. But my support is to have it be open to the public where there can be interaction during the public comment section. So that's where I stand on it, so everybody knows. So the legislation might prove that it's going to go my way anyway, but that's up to you guys what you want to do from this point.
My feeling is that we go back to the way it was, because I'm not sure that this hybrid is possible. If it was proved to me that it was possible, then I might see it your way, John. But
The proof is in trying to do it, though. If you don't try to do it, then it's never possible, right?
you have a point there. And then the other thing is, are you giving somebody more standing because they're there and not, I don't know. I'm for going back to in-person meetings, and, if somebody wants to, doesn't want to attend, but wants to make a comment, they're free to send, an email or have something be part of our packet, or, because we don't even know if it's possible yet, do we?
Well, we're set up for the technology. We're pretty sure it's going to work. I think it's going to work in some fashion. Whether it works as well as we'd like, well, just like with us transitioning to Zoom, I mean, for a while we had hiccups. We got through them. We figured them out. Some were us, some were not.
Well, here's the other side of what I just said. We do just what John said, and we try it for a meeting or two and have this discussion. I don't know where you said, Bill.
I can tell you that the only hesitation I had was just the fear of learning how to deal with this technology. If we didn't have to have it, that would be, I'd just avoid that. But considering how adamant John is that he'd like to have this technology, and considering how much more public participation there has been with Zoom, because I can tell you, Paul, before, nobody showed up at the meetings, to the point of where when one would show up, a citizen would show up, the commissioners would stop the meeting and say, "What do you want?" You know what I mean? It was like, wow, we got somebody here that's, anyways.
Yeah.
I'm going to support having this technology available and going, and support John on that. I'll make a commitment to learn whatever it takes to deal with it and go through the,
I'll support that, but and the condition is that if it doesn't work and it gets to be totally out
It's a
of hand.
disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a disaster, we can change.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the responsible approach. Is we have to at least.
let's make sure that, Bob, just a second, please. Let's make sure that Chuck understands that we want that technology up and running for the next meeting.
Yep.
And gentlemen, we're going to be seated at our regular places, right side by side, correct? I
Yep.
understand all three of us
Yeah.
have been vaccinated.
Mhm.
We're going to ask that members of the public and department heads and employees who have not been vaccinated wear masks, correct?
That's not what the law says, but okay, I'm okay with that.
Well, you're asking, right?
You're asking it.
You're asking to be respectful. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to do that? Do you care? I mean,
I personally don't care.
I think it's a responsible thing to do, to at least keep it as we are right now throughout the building. And before I forget, I don't know if I think Dennis sent you an email this morning that the courts have actually gone that route now as well. No more mask mandate from the courts, correct, Dennis?
Yeah, they have the same policy that we have, which is they're asking unvaccinated people to please wear a mask.
Right.
they're not asking for people to prove they've been vaccinated. There's no proof. So
There's no challenge, no.
it's an honor system. If you haven't been vaccinated,
Yeah. And we're not challenging anyone either.
Hey, Dennis, on that note, we're still gonna finish our completion of setting up the pass keys, right, on the different locations, or are we abandoning that now?
Yes, oh, yes, that's going
Okay.
forward still.
Good, good.
Remember, Bob had his hand up.
Yeah, I need to recognize Bob. Bob, you had a comment?
Sorry, Bob.
I just wanted to add, we've been doing this hybrid model with the County Fire Association and fire department, my own fire department. It's pretty easy. Simply have a meeting. We projected the screen like you see now on a display with a microphone and a camera. It's been very, very seamless. But I don't think it's as daunting as it sounds. A bunch of us firefighters can figure it out. I think Chuck could probably figure it out pretty easy.
There's Chuck's new assistant
Thanks,
right
Bob.
there. Congratulations, you've been
Old
upgraded.
dogs. For me, Bob, it's old dogs, new tricks, so.
Yeah.
It really was no different than what we're doing now, other than having one computer facing the people that are going to speak and having, having the screen that you can see the participants from your angle.
Yep.
It really is very, very, very simple.
And
So, Scott, what was the last? Go ahead, Paul.
I'm not even sure I can find the meeting room. I was shown it once, so I'll have to.
Pretty easy to
Scott,
find.
what was your comment with regards to mask again? Your last comment.
I said it was, I think I said it was responsible to continue with what we're doing in-house, which is recommend that those that are unvaccinated to, wear a mask.
Okay.
And I will take, because I want to give them some credit, but Chuck and Rebecca have done a great, no matter how this turns out, they've really done a great job at trying to line this up. And I know Dave and Dennis have run some cabling and stuff. So I think we're actually ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I kind of want to ease your mind a little bit. The technology that we have here is a little bit more sophisticated, sorry, Bob, than what his fire department might be using. I mean, what's going to be, Dennis helped us out one day. We had a sort of a trial run. The only thing that's going to look different to you, so you're going to be sitting at your podium in your spots, and you're going to be facing a very large screen that's going to have the Zoom participants on it. So you can choose to recognize them when you want to, just the same as you do in this format. There really shouldn't be any technology that you need to learn other than watching the screen to see if somebody wants to participate.
Okay.
Most of the controls will be on my desk. There are some cameras and things in there, but it's not anything that you need to worry about.
I
Thank
think
you.
you'll be very impressed.
John and Paul, I will tell you though that from the time we stopped meeting until now, Dennis has given us all new countertops and office podium space. And it behooves you perhaps to come in sometime before the meeting and organize your workspace there, because they're in terribly disarray now because we haven't been back to reorganize our space since we left. And and for you, Paul, I know everything you have reference material is probably all home, and you're going to want that at your workspace, however you want to do that. But and John, in fact, I've lost one of my 3-ring binders. I don't know if anyways. So anyways, just a word of caution that there's some disarray to your workstation up there, your podiums, when you shouldn't wait till 2 minutes before the meeting to.
Yeah, I got my binder this time just because Scott, brought it. It's tough for me to go. It's hard enough to go once. It's going to be real tough to go 2 or 3 times. So what I was wondering, in Bar Harbor, what we did is we'd get a packet on Friday night, which gave us the weekend to study it. Here, what has been done until I got this binder was, a bunch of emails come in and I've got to sift through all the documents and print them, each one, which is, takes some time. I'm wondering if we could adopt, and I gotta think this would be much easier for Rebecca and Patrice and Scott and everybody, department heads, if all that stuff was consolidated you know, on Thursday or Friday morning, and then a PDF of the whole thing sent to us, you know, on Friday. And then if there's straggling stuff coming in, deal with it. But there shouldn't be any straggling stuff coming in that close to a meeting. You know, I know
It happens every meeting, just so you know.
Yeah.
It happens every meeting.
I know.
Here's what we could do though, is, you know, I mean, there's a couple options. One is if you find that binder, I don't have any issues with, you know, either myself or it could be a sheriff's deputy or somebody, you know, bringing it down to you on Friday or whenever, you know, we finally get it finalized. So the other thing is to do just what you said. If you like that version, we can do that, even so much as, you know, a plain sheet of paper that identifies like the tab separation in the binder. And put it all into one PDF and send it to you, or any three of you if you guys would prefer that. But
Well, see, here's what I was thinking. This binder's wonderful, but somebody put together these 3 binders.
yes,
That took some time.
that coordinates with Patrice to get that done. Yep.
Yeah, so somebody spent at least an hour, probably 3 or 4 times that, doing these 3 binders. And to me, if it was just one scanned PDF, that gets emailed and bing, bang, boom, we've freed up somebody for that amount of time.
I agree with you. So here's the $1 million question. Does that work for all 3 of you? And I already know the answer.
Well, here, Bill, there's some hesitation, but here's why I liked it. Okay, why? And I'm just going by, you know, from history. I don't have the history on the county side. What I liked about it is I got mine came in an envelope. It wasn't a PDF, but
Right.
it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It was all in order from the meeting. The agenda was on top. The manager's memo, or in this instance, Scott's memo, would be underneath it. And then you just go through that pile of paper in order. To me, that's easier than thumbing through this binder, and everything's in one place. The problem with that is that I've learned at the county level, just as John pointed out, not everything comes in and, you know, on time, and we are getting stuff on Monday, but by God, that practice is taking a lot of time, you know, away from Scott, Patrice, you know, from staff. I mean, it's, and probably most, you know, Rebecca, well, the 3 of them, for sure. And, you know, I just feel terrible that they're spending that much time on these documents. And I don't know. I've said it enough. I feel that we should have rules of order that lay that out so that we're not taking their time. But
I can tell you, Paul, that during this last 15 months or however long we haven't been meeting, I've been going in and they've been putting my book together for me every day, and I pick it up and bring it down. So I have been working on my 3-ring binder now all this time, even though we've been on Zoom, and haven't been downloading those emails as they've been coming across. So I'm, you know, I still like and I would still go in and get my 3-ring binder if it was available, rather than downloading a PDF. So,
well, but my point is, why does it have to be a 3-ring binder? Why can't it just be, you know, if it was all a PDF, your practice could still continue, because Rebecca or whoever, I don't know who does it, somebody would print it off, put it in an envelope and hand it to you. And those papers would all be, you know, on Friday, all those papers would be in that envelope in order, as opposed, I mean, the 3-ring binder, that means that somebody is putting papers in that 3-ring binder.
Well, can I offer something? So what's most time consuming is all of these documents coming in at separate times and trying to organize them into one sort of cohesive pile. So once that's done, that we can put that into a PDF easily. We can make that happen. And you
Yeah.
can simply punch that and put it into however many binders that you wish. So it's not that much more work, just to, that would be, it seems like maybe that's a good solution for it.
Yeah, see, what I would like is on Friday, I get this email or this packet, whether it's physical or email, doesn't matter. I would just like, here are your documents for this meeting. Well, I don't have to go through 50 email, no, that's an exaggeration, but I
I
wouldn't.
don't think it is, actually. I think it's
Yeah, I wouldn't have to go through all those emails, and we wouldn't run into that instance where John and Bill didn't have, you know, Kitty's document, but I did.
Right.
You know, we wouldn't run it, we'd all be looking at the same thing. And right now, I don't feel that we always are. And that's nobody's fault except our own.
No, there's gonna be speed bumps here. So John, which one would you prefer? Because I see you looking at your phone a lot.
Well,
Because
I don't really want to have to, I'll be honest. Well, so over this time period, I've had to, like, you know, send the county bill for ink.
Yeah.
You know, because like it goes through a lot of ink on my printer for whatever reason. And, you know, they still kind of probably owe me at least another round of ink. So I try not to print stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm always having to, because there's always something that's changed a little bit or whatever, or I can't make it in to pick up the book before the meeting. So, you know, over the weekend or whatever, I'm printing it, or on Monday I'm printing it, and who knows. So I kind of would like to have it printed so I don't have to, or minimize the amount of stuff that I have to print on Monday to kind of catch up the stragglers. So I'd prefer it to be printed, but I'm also in Ellsworth, so I understand Paul's point that, you know, it's not a quick trip for him, but I'm driving through, and sometimes I'm in the building at 7 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, picking up my book.
Right.
So, but that's fine.
So Paul, we have a very accommodating staff, and I can tell you, if John and I had a different process than you, they would accommodate you. And if you want everything sent to you, because what happens is, as these documents come in, they get put into a binder. And so in other words, my binder is built. It's not developed one day. It's built over a period of time, because I can go in at any time from one meeting to the next, pick up my 3-ring binder and see what's come in since the last meeting and so on. And so, you know, I like that. And my binder is really, by Monday, it's basically completed, other than the straggling stuff that comes in. And I like that. But that's easy for me, because I'm in Ellsworth, especially as chairman. I'm in the courthouse 4 or 5 times a week anyways. And I really wish to continue that for me personally. But I'm sure that Rebecca and Patrice can accommodate a PDF file for you, right, Rebecca?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to create any more work.
It's not additional
No.
work. Like Beck said, once that's piled up, you just run it through the scanner and send it to you.
Right.
Yeah. I just, and you know, when you're dealing with one municipality, it was easy, because the police Friday night would come to your house, drop off your packet, and that was the end of
Right.
it. But we're all over the county, and you know, my guess is that there isn't a deputy in each town. So yeah, I'm not trying to be trouble. I was just trying to streamline things for everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, of
no,
course, we
and-
can make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, the one PDF is going to be much more effective and efficient for you than a multiple emails. I mean, would be for everybody. So we'll do the binders, and we'll send the PDF out to all of you. And if you choose to open it, open it. If you choose to delete it, delete it.
Now,
That's what we'll do.
like, you know, like this binder, for instance, somehow I got to figure out how to get it back to you before the next meeting. So, you know, that's the other part that, you know, I was thinking, geez, I don't know. Anyways.
I'd bring another one, and you'd return. You know, we charge you a deposit so that we get a little extra county revenue there. But yeah.
That's right.
We'll
Okay.
get there.
Paul, I think the bottom line is that Rebecca will reassure you that she'll accommodate whatever you need.
No, I'll figure it out. I don't want to.
You buy lunch, and Scott will come down and pick up your binder. Whatnot.
Oh, I love Eppies, by the
I
way.
don't even take a lunch.
I know.
Gentlemen, I think with some intrepidation, I guess we can look forward to our next meeting on the 20th, so.
Yeah.
I will
Can I
tell
just,
you that-
I'm sorry.
so go ahead, Rebecca.
I just want to clarify, if for public comment, are you going to recognize those that attend through Zoom, or do they need to be present in order for you to recognize them?
I would think both, wouldn't you, John?
Yeah.
You're okay with either?
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, not knowing what this technology is, but if we're going to allow the public interaction through, the Zoom, then we need to accommodate them. Yep.
So can somebody tell me, I've only been in the room once. Is there a name tag so I know where to put my stuff and sit?
Yep,
Okay,
yep, you'll have a nice little plaque with
okay,
the parody.
You're the only chair left, Paul.
okay. And then there's a place where I can park stuff there.
Mhm.
You have a two file drawer beside you, and you have filing room, bookcase behind you for room.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna try to get up there for a little more, a tour before the next meeting.
When you bring your book up, give yourself a little extra time and go up and look around.
Yep.
All right, as when we're talking about staff time and accommodating them, that's why this item B is on here. This really is a frig for our staff to get ready for a meeting on a Tuesday when Monday was a holiday. And I would like to work on trying to find an alternative date so that they don't have to, accommodate that after a day off. And I wanted to get it in on this because John, I know, puts in several months ahead of time to make sure he gets his Tuesdays off.
Yep.
And we have a Tuesday holiday coming up in September on Labor Day with Monday off. So this is going to be occurring again within a couple months. And Becca has always graciously accommodated us, but there's no need of that. I think giving enough notice, we can meet on a different day, can't we?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. My answer might be to change the deadline so that they don't have to, but if we're not willing to do that, your idea is better.
Change the deadline for what?
People getting stuff into Rebecca and Scott so that they don't have to do it on a Monday.
Well, we've talked about that for years, but I can tell you, Paul, it's just unworkable. And when I think of what we had gotten since Friday, this morning, what are you going to tell somebody? No, bring it back on the 20th. It isn't workable. It isn't practical. And I just don't know. Some of these people you'd like to take out back and thrash them because they do it more often than others. But on still, that's some, I don't know if Julie thought she had something on the agenda this morning. She said, put me off till the 20th. I'm reorganizing my department. And that was, a text I got during the meeting. So, it's just, maybe it's difficult for you to accept, but it's a fact of life that we're just going to have to work with. Yep.
Okay, I'll learn.
So,
Yeah.
John, I'm thinking of you and more in particular of anybody. How much notice do you need to?
Yeah, so like September's no problem. I can still put in for days in September to change around. So that's not an issue.
So Rebecca, what day would you just prefer to go to the Wednesday instead of Tuesday? What day, or go to the following Tuesday of the following week? Or what would you suggest we do?
Probably Wednesday would be good. I don't know if you wait another whole week, that might interrupt the flow of.
Yeah, might put them close together, two meetings close together.
Mm.
Or a long ways apart. Well, if we establish the policy that any Tuesday meeting date that follows a day off, a court day off, that it would be continued to Wednesday, that would give people like John an opportunity to plan well ahead so that they could get that, schedule that time off. Paul, is Wednesday a bad day for you? Any time of the year?
Well, they're all bad days this time of year, but no, I can make that work.
Okay. So why don't we make that, gentlemen, that you can expect any meeting date that falls on a Tuesday following a holiday will be pushed ahead one day to the following Wednesday. And we'll make that part of our informal policy, and Becca will set those dates accordingly. Okay?
So we'll have September 8th be the meeting date. This seems to me what we're saying.
Yep,
Okay.
that's what it looks like. So we'll say right today that we're going to meet on the 8th instead of the 7th in September.
All right.
Yep. Okay, gentlemen, that's going to conclude our public session. We have an evaluation this morning that needs to be conducted in the executive session. Motion is in order to go into an executive session.
So I'm going to move to go into executive session as permitted by 1 MRSA 4056A for an exempt employee evaluation.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and myself. Now in executive session.
Well, not just yet. We have some attendees that need to exit.
That's what I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ask you, do these people drop out or do you push them out?
I can remove them. It's better if they remove themselves.
You know if all these people are there or not?
Okay. Matt.
We have completed an evaluation with one of our department heads with no comment to make with regards to that evaluation. Gentlemen, anything further with regards to today's agenda? If not, I would like to let the public know that our next meeting is 8:30 on July 20th, and that we will be once again meeting in person at the courthouse at our regular meeting place, and that we will be setting up with, do we still call it Zoom technology, Rebecca?
Yeah,
It's a hybrid Zoom technology so that you can still continue to meet with us and interact with us on Zoom technology, or you can attend in person. The only thing we ask is that, of course, if you're unvaccinated, that you consider wearing your mask during the time you're in the courthouse. That is also a request made by the court personnel before entering the building. Gentlemen, anything further before we adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Faraday,
Yes.
and I am myself. We are adjourned. Good day, gentlemen.
See ya.
Thank you.